Great people in the world. It's your guy, Nicholas Wilcox. Alongside here, you know who he is, the one and only Johnny Main. Johnny, say what's up to the great people, Johnny. Start growling at them.
Ah,
All right, you
what's
can do that
up?
too.
What's up, man? What's going down?
You tell us.
Oh,
Let's give you your, 60 seconds of fame.
well, okay. All right.
59, 58, 57, 50.
Oh man. Nah, man, just feeling good. Feeling good. Had a good week this week. With picks. Had a good week in the DFS world. Obviously, my boys came through clutch and
All right,
beat
6 seconds over. Thanks.
beat down the Crimson Tide. It was a good weekend. There was this game on Sunday night that got out of control real quick, real quick.
Oh,
I
boy.
am eating crow a little bit with the Pittsburgh Steelers in that situation. Russ Wilson obviously went out there and cooked on Sunday Night Football. I mean, those are my biggest things, man. Seen some good games, man. Detroit, Minnesota was a good game, kind of just like we had talked about. That was one of the games we were looking forward to, and that actually was everything we thought it was going to be. And my boy finally went down. KOC, man, finally went down. The Vikings did. They finally went down.
I called this, but okay.
Yeah, they finally went down. Jordan Love, man. Guy's a beast. Guy is a beast. Yeah, man, that's kind of where I'm at right now, man. Just looking forward to week 8. We're over halfway through the season, man, and just excited about this show tonight to be able to help out some people, man. Hopefully get them to the fantasy football playoffs and make some moves and make some good decisions. Got a lot of decisions to make out there this week on the waiver wire, as we'll get to that. But pretty excited, man.
Yep, week 8 fantasy football show, week 7 reaction, waiver wire, trade advice, like all things considered, like this is starting to be, it's going to be the turning point for some teams in regards to if they could climb back into the race or if they're just going to flounder out to the open sea to never come back this year.
Ever again. Ever again.
What we got so far, what we noticed from week 7, there's a ton of things to actually go over in terms of like just NFL life. There's one, for me, the AFC in particular, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills driving the AFC. Ravens looking unstoppable, looking like shades of last year plus with this ground game. Came into Monday Night Football literally just almost again just driving things forward. Like, Ravens go down 10-0 early in the game, and then it's like doesn't phase Lamar at all. He finishes the game with 5 passing touchdowns. Derrick Henry runs for over 170 yards, including a receiving touchdown, and the Ravens aren't phased one bit, taking care of business on the road in Tampa. Lamar is still undefeated against NFC South opponents throughout his career. Chiefs, big win against the Niners. In terms of how the AFC landscape, is going to take shape. Obviously back-to-back champs looking for the 3rd title, still undefeated, beating the Niners 28-18. And in terms of how, we have Mahomes, he overall is just doing it without doing it from a statistical standpoint. It is pretty remarkable how this Chiefs team just consistently comes to play in terms of how they just won another game. So, yeah, when it comes to Kansas City, like, it doesn't matter if they're home or away, just finding ways to get the job done. Buffalo, much as I hate to say it, Buffalo is pretty decent, pretty good. I mean, they only played the Titans, but they still, are leading the AFC East by 3 games, while everybody else just flounders. Johnny, hear me okay?
I mean, the one thing I will say is Pittsburgh Steelers disrespect will not be tolerated here as you talk about all these other teams in the AFC. I think obviously the Ravens do look good, man. I think there's really no denying that. The Kansas City
I was gonna
Chiefs.
say, I was like, your Steelers look like the best team in the AFC right now.
No, but I tell you what, when you have a winning record versus the Baltimore Ravens during the Lamar Jackson era, you definitely have a different look on things for sure. And the same thing with the Buffalo Bills. That's not a team that I feel like is threatening to the Pittsburgh Steelers, even with the recent addition of Amari Cooper. That's a team that the Steelers have had success against, has been the Bills. The Chiefs, like I can't disrespect Patrick Mahomes like that, so I gotta hope somebody else maybe does our dirty work, or that's why they loaded up on defense like this, right? Like maybe it comes back to haunt them the fact that they don't have a true number one wide receiver. Obviously Travis Kelce is the best thing smoking for them, but for me, man, I think like it's fair to say that these three teams are at the top of the AFC, but I do think you have to put the Pittsburgh Steelers in this conversation for sure, just from the defensive side of the ball. And hey, man, back-to-back weeks of 30 points. I'm
just not ready to do that just yet, and it's a non-biased opinion because it's more of I need to see Russ do this again in order for the Steelers to be more complete, cohesive, taking seriously team. I need to see this one more time from Russ. Like, no shade from the Jets getting their asses whooped by the Steelers. It's not even about that. It's really just more about I need to see if the Steelers are a complete team. Like, can they actually?
So let me ask you. So this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're putting the Buffalo Bills in that category after we've seen them lay a couple of eggs and really beat teams.
Well, it's really for me, the Ravens and the Chiefs are leading the AFC. Everybody else is like, where it's at. The only reason why I put the Bills here at the moment is because they are leading the division, and they're doing it pretty handily. So that's the only reason why they're in the mix here. Are they a complete team like ahead of the Ravens and Chiefs? No, but they do deserve a seat at the table. The Steelers just not there just yet. I need to see if the big test for the Steelers for me is the Ravens in a couple of weeks. Even the Commanders can give you a nice, jockeying a position, especially if Jaden Daniels is playing that game. But that's after the bye. You guys get the Giants this week. So again, it's a nice schedule overall. Like in my opinion, again, it's an unbiased opinion. Like I gotta shoot it straight with you. Like, the Chargers are an okay team. You got Atlanta first week of the season. We all know the Cowboys ain't shit. We know the Jets ain't shit. We know the Raiders ain't shit. So it's, again, good schedule so far. You're beating the teams that you're supposed to be beating. Look forward to the other half of the schedule, though, where it gets down to the nitty-gritty. So we'll see.
Nothing to say.
The Steelers beat the Ravens. That's where I take the Steelers.
Bro, that's like what are we doing? I just told you, man. Like we have a winning record against the Baltimore Ravens and against Lamar Jackson. Like the only team on this screen
that I played them this year.
Yeah, just overall, the only team I'm going to put some respect on their name is the Kansas City Chiefs. That's it.
It's fine.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Oh boy. All right, so driving to NFC, since we're on the topic, if this will ever come up for me, Eagles, Lions, driving NFC. It was the Vikings.
Oh,
then they got beat.
What are you trying to do? We had such a good show on Sunday, and you're already starting off on this BS already, man. What are you doing, bro?
Well, we should put the Commanders in this conversation.
The Commanders? What are we doing, bro? What about the Vikings? What are we doing, bro?
They're 5-2.
What are we doing? This is insane.
Okay.
This is insane.
How?
Insane.
Wait, how?
You don't have the Minnesota Vikings as a team driving in the NFC?
No, they got beat by the Lions.
Oh my God, dude, you're ridiculous, bro. You're ridiculous.
I told you on Sunday.
You are
if they lose to the Lions, I can't take this team as serious.
Ridiculous, bro. Ridiculous. But you're gonna put the Commanders on the screen, but you ain't gonna put the damn Vikings on here.
They have a better record than them, man.
Get off the boo-boo. Get off the boo-boo. Get off the boo-boo.
Oh boy. But look, I called it. The Eagles, if they don't win by more than 10 points, we can't take this team seriously. We can't take them as Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
What they go out there and do? Whop the Giants by like over
work.
27 points.
Yeah.
Took them out
that work,
shit. But I mean, all games and fun considered, Vikings are a serious team on here. It's just more of they lost to the Lions, so it's like kind of like they got to step down a little bit for me. But in terms of how you see the NFC so far, what's shocking you? What's surprising you? And overall, like, what do you see fit? Can you believe through 7 games that the Seahawks are leading the NFC South?
You mean the NFC West? Out there?
NFC South. The NFC. I was looking at the NFC South, and I was like, you know what I mean? The NFC West.
Yes and no. I'll tell you why I say yes is because we've talked about it ad nauseum. At least I have. I always go with this card. You go to the Super Bowl and you lose. Just history is not on your side. So when you look at all the teams that are in, when you look at all the teams that are in the NFC.
We've been saying aggression's coming for the Niners constantly. So
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Now, like, I'm really impressed with what Kyle Shanahan has been able to do. Because I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's playing with backup players at all of his skill positions. For all intents and purposes, man, like that's like for them to even be in the mix, like that's pretty impressive to me. But yeah, I'm not shocked at that aspect of it for sure. So I think if we had to take a look at a team that we thought maybe could have made a little bit more noise, I think it would have been the Rams. But obviously injuries have struck them as well. But it seems like they're getting ready to start getting healthy right at the right time. As they have Cooper Kupp potentially getting ready to come off of IR this week. Looks like he's going to play on Thursday night. And Puka Nacua, I think he practiced today. So that would have been the team that if you told me it wouldn't have been the San Francisco 49ers, health withstanding, I would have said the Rams probably would have been a team, the team in the NFC West to look at. But I just think it's a testament to what the Seattle Seahawks have going on out there right now with Geno Smith and that. Like, they're playing more modern football. They have, like, a lot of young talent, like, at the skill positions, obviously with JSN, DK Metcalf, Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet. And I think Seattle's just always been a tough place to play. So, man, I'm not surprised, but that definitely wouldn't have been my pick, man.
Same team that lost to the Giants, though, a couple weeks ago at home.
Hey, man, wise man once told me this, man. Any given Sunday is what a wise man told me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what a wise man told me. So,
I know, right? That wise man is.
I know. It's almost like, hey, man, you can play defense on either side of the coin here, man. I think I think, yeah, like I wouldn't have expected that early on. And like, yeah, man, like the Giants took it to them, man, for sure. Do I think the Seahawks are a Super Bowl contending team? No. I think they've always been a playoff team. I think they showed that last year, even with Pete Carroll and their Stone Age offense. But yeah, man, definitely not the card I would have played would have been the Seahawks leading the NFC West.
Yeah, and leading into it now the Niners don't have Ayuk. He's done for the year, tore the ACL, but got paid before that injury happened.
Yeah.
He honestly wasn't doing shit before that game anyway. Look, there's one. I mean, Deshaun Watson, man. You saw this. I told you in this. We were texting each other. I told you the Achilles. As soon as I saw
you could see it just pop. And like, you know what, man? Like I feel bad because like he actually looked like he was on pace to play a decent game. Like he actually was looking okay during that game, man. And I just was like, man, like obviously you never like to see any player go down, like for sure. And I think like you could just see
even if he's like not the best human, but yeah, continue.
Right. Like, I mean, listen, these guys are pro athletes and yeah, he's not a great human, like for sure. I don't wish ill will on anyone. But like you could just see, like obviously, like he had been all the things that he had been carrying when they bought the card out, man. Just like all the questions that he had to answer, all the speculations and allegations, and and then knowing that like hey man, this is at least a year injury for him. That was kind of tough for me to see, even being a Steelers fan. That was kind of tough for me to see, but obviously, man, like hope the guy's speedy recovery for sure. And just hope he doesn't get into any other stupid shit while he's, recovering, but like you could just see that was he was playing good football, man. Like I'm not saying he was going to break a slate or anything, but I think that was probably the best that I had seen him look, through 1.5 quarters of football when that was going on. So,
yeah, I get it, but it's also like with Watson, like, come on, the writing was on the wall before this injury. There was already rumblings of him. Yeah, there was already rumblings of you need to go sit him, stuff like that. And now the Browns just look like one of the worst organizations in all football history for this contract they gave him.
All because they traded Baker Mayfield, bro.
Well, yeah, on top of that as well.
Yeah.
So again, it becomes like, very puzzling for the Browns franchise. Like, I don't, honestly, I'm like, look, like, I agree with you. I don't wish no ill will on anyone playing injured because, or injuries, whatever, because the NFL, any professional level, when you get there, it's like, you're playing, whatever. It's like, all right, well, you're there and you're playing. So, Blue Jays, I see you. We'll answer your questions in a moment. But yeah, like when it comes to like Watson, Ayuk, but man, I was gutted. I was gutted for Chris Godwin. I was so gutted. I don't have Godwin in any of my leagues, but that's beside the point. I love I hit. It just felt like he was going to have the bounce. He was going to have the bounce back year. He had already seen the shades of it. Like he was already a top 10 wide receiver, pretty much any format. And I'm just gutted because, like, it's football. It's football, and again, 10-point game, stuff like that. Like, should he have been out there? Should he not been out there? I don't really know, because at the end of the day, it becomes like, you're trying to win a game, you're trying to get back into the game at some point, and it's still a 2-possession game, but I don't think you should have like rested him per se. But it was just,
what though, man? Like, I think like me and a guy at work, man, he came over and we were kind of, shooting the shit about our bets in the weekend or whatever. And, one of the things, man, too, like, I think like we have to take into consideration is,
on the contract year too.
There's that. And then like to Blue Jays' point, man, like there's certain stats that these guys got to get kickers, and like when you're in a contract year, like you want to be out there. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of the shorts and things like that about Dez Bryant. Yes, I much love Blue Jays. Some of the shorts about Dez Bryant and some of the things that happened with him allegedly during his Dallas time, as far as like them not throwing him the football at certain times and et cetera, et cetera. So like you have him out there, right? Because like he's looking to hit those marks, man. And a lot of these guys are literally true warriors and true competitors and don't want to come off the football field, man. And I agree, dude. Like this was the best that I had seen Chris Godwin look since the Tom Brady time frame. And you could tell in this offense, the way he was being utilized, like it was Chris Godwin go time. And like, I think to your point, man, for him to be injured at that stage of the game with, little to nothing left on the line, I think, Todd Bowles is, I'm pretty sure he probably had a tough night of sleep on that one right there to lose your star wide receiver in a game.
He lost Mike Evans early on in the game. He re-aggravated the hamstring.
Yeah, but Mike Evans is gonna come back.
But
Chris Godwin Chris Godwin is done.
It's gonna be tough.
I literally turned the game. I turned the game off with like a minute and 40 left.
Do you realize the next opponents for the Bucs? They got the Falcons at home.
Yeah,
they got the Super Bowl reigning champs on the road first week of November. They got the Niners after that. They got their bye week. So that's why I was saying, like, this is like the worst time to have these type of injuries right now, because now you got 2 year stud wide receivers out, and now it's like the back end guys we'll get into. But just injuries, man. It's definitely, these are times where it's like, Chris Godwin, Rashee Rice, Ayuk, like all these stud receivers are going down.
Isaiah Pacheco,
and we're gonna get you guys prepared.
Travis Etienne, the list goes on, man.
Yeah, like Puka Nacua, like it's just not. It's been a lot of top heavy injuries to some decent stars so far this year. And again, we'll get you guys prepared for when it comes to waiver wire in a little while. First things first, we're going to dive into the buy low, sell highs for week 8. We're going to get you guys ready Because again, this is a crucial time of the year now when it comes to trades, like acquisitions, who to get off of at the right time, who to start looking at if you're ahead of people in your leagues, who to start trading for now versus for schedules, or just players that can benefit now if you're definitely on the tail end of the league. You don't want losers punishment, so you're making the moves to make sure that you're not there. Good news is every team is playing this week. There is no buys. Next week will be different. Niners on bye. We'll have your Steelers on bye, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple other teams as well that I'm forgetting that they'll be on bye, but this week there is none. Starting with our first bye of the week. Speaking of the Niners, Deebo Samuel. With Deebo, we have to, he had an pneumonia apparently. So that's why he pretty much tried to play the game, played 4 snaps, and then bounced. Thank you for destroying some of my teams, Deebo, this week. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. But this is not a personal feelings gripe show. This is a fantasy football give people advice show. So what I'm going to do, just throwing it out there. Just throwing that out there, If you want to air your grievances, there's a chat as well. But when it comes to Deebo, we know Christian McCaffrey, without him, there's no Ayuk now. So again, this Niners offense should be funneling through Deebo, Kittle, and then everybody else, Jordan Mason, stuff like that. But without Ayuk, the last 2 seasons, Deebo has been targeted on 34.8% of his routes. So without Ayuk. So if all systems go for Deebo, we know what kind of Swiss Army knife he is in terms of how he takes carries every once in a while. And again, still no McCaffrey, and now no Ayuk. The Niners should be prepared to get Deebo a ton of more touches, which in turn should produce you some really good fantasy points and opportunities to try to buy Deebo. In a situation where I'm trading for Deebo, I think I'm trying to do this immediately because even if for some reason, even if Deebo misses, but this week with the ammonia, the bye week's coming, stuff like that next week. But I still want to buy Deebo because I think there'll be depends on your leagues mates and stuff like that, where if Deebo is on a team where it's like they gotta win now, then sending some decent pieces, it's interesting. I think the package for Deebo in my eyes, one for one Garrett Wilson potentially. Just because, again, there's some ambiguity there. That's a 1-for-1. Hey, take your guy Pickens and trade for him right now.
I was gonna say it. We're on the same page.
I know you were. That's why I beat you to it.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Gotta come with somebody else. Straight up. If you're looking to get from other Pickens for whatever reason, I don't necessarily say Pickens is a sell high per se or anything like that. It's more of where usage is going to increase for Deebo. So that's where, again, you want the guy that has a little bit more usage overall than potentially what we have seen so far. But yeah, look, Johnny, what do you say about Deebo? If you got some guys out there trying to trade for him, or you're looking to acquire him in a league, what do you think your fair price tag would be giving up Deebo in general?
Well, I think George Pickens, that's a really good starting place, for me. When I think about, what would I be willing to give up for Deebo, I think you can even start to now kind of get into, depending on your situation, man, another guy. I'm curious to see. I'm not, I don't like trading for, what do you call them, for hospital? What do you call it? What's your little phrase?
I don't like hospital chasing.
Hospital chasing.
I don't like.
But maybe JT and something else. Maybe I think there's a.
Wow,
I think there's a lot of
something else. That's interesting. I'll just do JT straight up.
I think it's again, man, it's name brand, right? It's name brand, and I think
sure.
We could talk about that later on or whatever for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's.
What about DeAndre Swift? Do you think if people have DeAndre Swift, they would
no.
If you have DeAndre Swift, you wouldn't trade him for Deebo?
Oh, if I had DeAndre Swift, would I trade him for Deebo? Fudge, yeah. With peanut butter.
I'm just saying, Aaron Jones, maybe, so
I
if we're
think
talking about
I like that trade right there. I like Aaron Jones for Debo, just because I think you're kind of getting a very similar. I don't want to say similar skill set. Like you're getting a guy that has a very high upside in Aaron Jones, but you're also getting somebody as well that that like does have an injury history, and I think that's a very similar comp to Debo. He's somebody that has a very high ceiling, but also has an injury history. And like another thing, like for me, like with Debo, like outside of like the players to trade for, San Francisco 49ers got to win, like we were just talking about recently. They got to win. Deebo Samuel is their best football player. So, like, I do, to your point, like, I love this call by you when you were like, hey, Deebo's one of my buy high guys. I was like, yeah, I rock with that for sure because they got to win football games. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is to get Deebo the football moving forward, man. So I like that.
Definitely. By number 2, we have David Njoku of the Browns. Johnny, take us away on this one.
For me, man, I'm all in on Njoku right now. Obviously, we just talked about the injury to Deshaun Watson. So that obviously is going to give them a different quarterback. But even with that, with Deshaun Watson and his inefficiencies at playing the quarterback position, over the last 3 weeks, David Njoku has ranked in the top 25 in routes ran. And he's number 15 overall in the last 3 weeks for routes ran with wide receivers and tight ends. And he's in the top 3 for targets. Like, so we know what we're getting with David Njoku. We know what the skill set is. And now all of a sudden, Amari Cooper is gone. There's a quarterback change. I think this is one of those scenarios and situations for me personally, with tight end being what it has been for us over this entire year for fantasy football. This is a guy I feel like right now you can absolutely trade for, and I think you can actually get a high ceiling for him for sure, and not have to give up a whole lot to get him.
That's right. It's definitely a sneaky move. I didn't think about David Njoku, so that was really good. When I saw that, I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense because tight ends where people are hurting a good amount of teams the most because, even if you have if you drafted an elite tight end, like you're just looking for production at this point. And the QB switch in Cleveland could shake up some things for especially David Njoku to be actually used as traditional tight end, whether it be James Winston or Dorian Thompson starting, it don't matter. Njoku, top 25 in routes run and top 15 in targets over the last 3 weeks, no matter if he's a receiver or a tight end catching the football. Like David Njoku is a great buy. Again, even if, Njoku is one of those guys where we take on because we overall are going to need a guy who can produce at tight end. So that being said, last buy on the list, before we get to some questions here, it's a screaming buy, obviously, because of the offense, but it's Devontae Smith. And when we look at things, there's definitely going to be some overreactions. Hopefully you got some overreacting Oscars or overreacting Olsons in your league, something like that, where it's like people are like freaking out about Devontae Smith. They're freaking out about the Eagles offense in general. Look, the Eagles were pounding the Giants. It was the Saquon Barkley show, baby, like we called it. You know what I'm saying? But in all smacking that ass.
No, it was my Kevin Hart from Get Hard. It's St. Quentin, baby.
Yeah. See, people, we even bring entertainment value. But Devontae Smith, we all know like he's gonna have a better games are ahead, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because 91% route participation against the Giants, only second time in Devontae Smith's career where he's had 3 or fewer targets. Currently has the 3rd easiest schedule for receivers for the next 4 weeks and has the best schedule amongst receivers for the rest of the season. Look, Devontae Smith's a screaming buy. We called AJ Brown a couple weeks ago. We called Saquon Barkley to trade for him last week before his clear explosion that was supposed to happen against the Giants. You should have took the kitchen sink and threw it at the Saquon Barkley owner for him to trade him. But yeah, look, Devontae Smith is definitely the guy that is a screaming buy. And then some additional extra buys that we're including is on the list in the ticker below. Now, this is going to be depending on how your league is going to go. But CeeDee Lamb, we talked about him before on this show a couple weeks back before the bye week. So hopefully you've bought him. I know he didn't exactly produce per se before the game, against the Lions because the Cowboys were just scripted out. But CeeDee Lamb, again, another screaming buy to where this is the time of the year where you want to acquire him, and he probably could be acquired for just a tad bit less now. What do you say to the rest of these names here, Johnny? I want to get your thoughts on some of these other guys here too.
Devontae Smith, that's a great call, man. Like I think we all drafted him for a reason and we all loved him for a reason this offseason. So like I love the Devontae Smith call out for sure. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do that too. And then Tyreek Hill, man, like Tua's on his way back, potentially. And if Tua's on his way back and he is able to stay healthy, and you've been able to hang on with Tyreek Hill, like some people I know, as your starting wide receiver one, you're in a good place, right? Like you're in a really good place. Malik Neighbors was actually somebody that I had thought about going with as far as like a buy high candidate. Like just because like I think like it's a great time. He's missed, a couple games. He didn't have a great game. So I think it's an opportunity to capitalize on him. And even Kamara. I think it's a very similar situation with Kamara because there's one guy that's not on this list that's in the same breath, and that's Chris Olave. I had him written down as well that I think is somebody.
Yeah, he was close. I'll just say that.
Yeah, like he's somebody that I have here just because I think like, for everybody that's watching, man, like, kind of the art form to this is like you got to be almost like 2 weeks ahead of the curve when you get ready to go buy a guy high. And like Devontae Smith, man, I had some chump messaging me last night in one of my leagues, man. Like that,
he's a chump,
beat
huh?
me. Yeah, he's a chump, man. He beat me by 15 points. He's in first place in this league. And I had Devontae Smith and I had Jamison Williams in my starting lineup, and he had Lamar Jackson, and he had to have 34 points. He beats me by 15 points, and he's talking this monster shit. And I'm like, bro, like we ain't worried about week 7 losses, man. Yeah, man, like we out here playing for chips, bro. But like, yeah, like I think like he definitely Chris Olave made the list for me in my own mind. And I'm going to be extra, and I'm going to put one more guy out there as well that I want to bring everybody's attention. And maybe he's available, maybe he's not. But Caleb Williams over the last 3 weeks, man, he's starting to find his groove, man. So like whether you can trade for him, because I know Patrick Mahomes hasn't been hitting the mark, CJ Stroud hasn't been hitting the mark. I think like now's a really good time. Like if you are in a league and you have the opportunity to get Caleb Williams for the low or, whatever the case may be. Last 3 weeks, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a QB rating of 122.8. He's one of the top 3 quarterbacks over the last handful of weeks. So I think Caleb Williams' season is among us. And just kind of give you guys a little preview, he definitely will be somebody who's in my DFS lineups this week for sure as well.
Yeah, it's fair enough to say. Yeah, I mean, look, like these are just some of the extra buys here because look, like there's like you just said, it's an art form and you have to be ahead like a week or 2 at least to land the guy that you're targeting. But again, everything is a little bit more, everything's flowing, everything's vibing, stuff like that. So it's gonna change sometimes on the dime. So I mean, look, that's where we're kind of at when it comes to these buys. Guys, any more questions, feel free to drop them. Before we get to the sells, I want to answer a few questions for people in the chat. We'll start with Blue Yays because he's been very, very patient. And thank you for dropping your like and your sub for us. We definitely appreciate you increasing the brand. Anything we can do, we're here for the people. So Blue Yays is asking, he traded Jacobs for DJ Moore in a mid-round pick. So he has 3-player keepers. Need a receiver bad. Still have Kamara, Hunt, Hubbard, and Bigsby. Asked around. It's the best I could get. I know it's not the best value. So yeah, I mean, keeper questions are gonna always be, interchangeable because it's like, every setting is going to be a little different. You know, you don't know who your league mates are going to be selecting, stuff like that. But when it comes to, you know, traded Jacobs for DJ Moore in a mid-round pick, I think that's fine. I think we've seen some upside for DJ Moore. It's just we wish it was a little bit more consistent. I think Jacobs kind of the same way. Especially if you have Kamara and Hunt and Hubbard and Bigsby. Like, I get it. If you need a receiver bad, you had to make the move. I think the next move I would say is if you're considering this, trading Kamara and finding out if someone's gonna bite, you know, you take Kamara, you take maybe somebody else, and then you package them up to get a better running back because, you know, Hunt, Hubbard, Bigsby, some of those guys, I'm not sure out of those three who's on borrowed time the most as an RB2 on this roster. So it's just something to consider. But I don't mind the trade for Jacobs. I think that's a pretty fair move for both sides. I think it's more of like you're hoping that the Bears coming off the bye, you're hoping Caleb Williams is still clicking to where it wasn't like DJ Moore earlier on in the year where it was like they weren't in sync at all. But yeah, when it comes to trading, like, you know, again, yeah, like you said, I would say the pick, like the trade is a little bit of a step below, but hey, DJ Moore is still a guy that could come out and give you 2 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? Could still win you a week. But what do you say, Johnny, to this? And any advice for Blue Jays in general?
Well, I mean, it just kind of goes into what I was just talking about with, you know, how I like Caleb Williams, and liking Caleb Williams in return means, like, I like DJ Moore. He's on my fan. He's actually on one of my keeper rosters, actually, that I have. I have him and Roma Dunze are my two. Don't ask me how I ended up landing the 2 of them, but like I ended up landing them in the draft. Just kind of handcuffing receivers, right? If one don't play, the other one does. And like, you know, I said this, you know, back in April, man. Like, I believe in Caleb Williams and I believe in what they have going on. And I think
breaking news.
Oh,
Browns plan to start Jameis Winston this week. Continue.
David Njoku. But also too, man, like I think the point I was going to get to was that like you see that the NFC North is now like it's the best division in football right now, and you're playing against the Minnesota Vikings. KOC, my man, gonna be throwing the football quite a bit. You got to be able to. You got to be able to keep up. You got to be able to keep up. Yo, you've seen what the Green Bay Packers have done, man. Like when they get to the red zone, they are throwing the football in. So actually, I like this move for you, Blue Jay. I really do. And then the Detroit Lions, they're going to run the football, but like they're also just explosive in so many different avenues, right? So like you got a few more matchups in division with Caleb Williams to be able to be in potential shootouts with DJ Moore. So I do like this trade for you. I think I like it a little bit more than my man Nick does. And then I agree with Nick like on this. You do have some running backs who are on borrowed time for sure, whether that's Chuba Hubba or maybe even Kareem Hunt, right? But Tank Bigsby has looked really good so far this year, and Travis Etienne, for whatever reason, that situation is a little bit more scary to me than the other two because it's only a matter of time before there's a different head coach in Jacksonville. So I
That's true.
I actually like this trade for you, man.
Definitely. Pareko. There we go. 2 and 5 in a super flex. If I could turn Mahomes, Jefferson, Njoku, Brees, and Dell. Whoa, this is a big trade. Hold on. Hold on.
These are always the ones that like breakups. Like right here.
One of those I'm about to write down on.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, get a pen and pad out, man.
Evaluate this, right. Old school, pen and paper, So, Pareko, give me a moment. Beep, 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 beep.
So I'll take it. I got you. So Mahomes, Jefferson.
Yep.
Njoku.
Yep.
Brees.
Yep.
And Tank Dell.
That's a monumental trade. Super flex. Is it a full? I want to know if it's a full. Well, what I know is a full point PPR Pareko. Just let us know that, or if it's a half point.
It might be like an 8-man league too, I believe, or something like that.
Seems like it. So
I think it's an 8. I think I remember him.
Pollard,
Neighbors, Josh Allen's, Josh Allen, T. Higgins, and Mandrews. The other tight end he has is Ferguson. His other running back is Kyron and Deontay and Waddle. So basically, the trade is all Pollard, Neighbors, Allen, Higgins, and Mark Andrews.
All right. So my discrepancy here in this, so he has Mahomes, Jefferson, and Njoku, Brees, Dell. I think where the trade gets very interesting is, getting a guy like Mahomes getting a guy like Josh Allen versus Mahomes, it's a clear upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a guy like Pollard over Brees, I'm not in love with. No. Just because we know Pollard is decent, don't get me wrong, but he's just not Brees Hall level. Even in trade value discussions, like Brees Hall is still valued way higher. But then Neighbors enters the picture, and he's the best receiver over Dell. And then it just comes down to Njoku or Andrews. Who do you trust?
And he's getting T. Higgins too.
You know what I'm saying? He's getting T. Higgins, yeah. I probably would say my only gripe and counter to this is not giving up Brees, because you're giving up Brees and Jefferson. It's like, I'm not in love with that, because again, at the end of the day, I'm getting Neighbors, but I'm not getting a great running back in return, even though he has Kyron. These are situations where I just don't like giving up. I feel like he's giving up the better half of the trade for a little bit more, you would say, security. But even here, I don't like, if you could find a way to do something without Brees and or Jefferson, I'd be willing to do something like this, because I like the upgrade of Allen over Mahomes. I like the upgrade of even a Higgins over Dell at this moment. And then Njoku and Andrews, I mean, look, like, I feel like sometimes Andrews going to have some weeks such like he did last week, and hopefully it's the turning point. But it's also like, I think Njoku's still in a decent spot as well, where if you had to keep him, you had to play him every week, you could. So, and he has Ferguson. So I think finding a way to not give up Jefferson and Brees, in my opinion.
Well, that's probably the cornerstone of that's probably the cornerstone on the trade, right, man? It's because I think like you're trying to get rid of Mahomes, who, like, in all reality, man, like we talked about on Sunday, he's a better real life quarterback right now than he is a fantasy quarterback. So like him getting the upgrade, what offers Mahomes?
This gives context. It's a three-team trade. So one offer is Mahomes and JJ for Allen, Andrews, and Higgins, and the other offer is Brees and Njoku for Pollard and Neighbors. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So no to the first offer. I'm not giving up Mahomes and JJ. I just want to keep JJ in that situation. The next trade would be, it's a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit more interesting because Neighbors, honestly, we all seen has that he can win you a week mentality. It's just, are they gonna pull Daniel Jones? Like, is that offense gonna get any better? Like, there's just questions now.
Dude. I like this Allen thing, man, because like I think like the thing from like the reason why,
but JJ,
well, like that's the thing though, dude, is like this, like you gotta get, he's gonna have to give up something. And like Allen and Mahomes, man, like you're like Mahomes, man, like that's the name.
I just don't think it's enough.
Okay, like Mahomes and JJ's.
Look, the only reason why I'm always saying it's not enough is because like I'm not getting like, I don't know, because take out the QBs in this situation is basically Andrews and Higgins for JJ, and I don't like that.
Okay, not even after seeing Andrews be on the upswing here.
Yeah, but I would need to see something like that from Andrews again in order to be like, okay, like he is a for sure thing. Just like what we talk about with your boy Russ. Like I need to see this
Well, I
Again, in
think
order to do
we're
this.
right, but I think like the difference between like a Russ and Andrews is that Russ has been moving slow. Andrews, the only thing that hurt him last year was injuries. That's what hurt him at the end of it. Like he had been a top tight end producer like for years. So like for me, like the main reason why I like,
gamble.
but just hear me though. The main reason why I actually like this though is because Josh Allen now with Amari Cooper now in the mix. Like, I think this makes this a different offense, man. Like, I truly, truly do. And like we were just talking about, like in our other segment, man, like, like you got to be a couple of weeks ahead of the game. And like, if Amari Cooper already caught a touchdown and only had 5 or 6 days with Josh Allen, what does that look like coming down the stretch with a guy like Amari Cooper and giving Josh Allen's rushing upside? I just think like Mahomes, it is what it is. Justin Jefferson, like, does anybody want to give up Justin Jefferson? No, like nobody wants to. And then, like you were just talking about as well, man, like with Breece and Pollard, like the second offer here, Breece and Njoku for Pollard and Neighbors, like you're giving up one playmaker who now has to share the ball with 2 other guys for the guy Neighbors, who is the only guy getting the ball, and Tony Pollard is definitely the only show in town. I don't want to give up Justin Jefferson either, I guess is like my main thing. Like I hear you, but like I think you're getting a significant upgrade at the quarterback position, man. Like
So would you say if he did these trades, the new team of his would be the Allen, Pollard, Neighbors, Higgins, and Andrews side would be his new team?
Say it again.
I said his new team would be Allen, it would be Kyron, it would be Pollard, it'd be Neighbors, Higgins, Andrews, and Ferguson. That'd be the new team. It's definitely a tough call, I'll be honest.
I guess let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this.
Yeah, sure.
Like, this is not in the same trade context, but would you trade Neighbors for Jefferson?
No.
Okay.
And I know it's close.
Yeah, it's close.
It's a little bit more closer than everybody thinks, but the only reason why is because the only reason why I'm giving Jefferson a little bit more weight here, it's not only because he's a superstar, but we know the offense is vertical. We know that this offense is going to be, KOC, like we say every week. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's Minnesota is going to be a high octane offense that is going to be phenomenal over fantasy. There's still some, pessimism here with Neighbors because it's like he's still a rookie. The Giants still look weird. You know what I'm saying? I know he's proven it so far, but it's like, man, I know rookies get better throughout the season too. But again, like, look, if I am the first offer, I'd be more hesitant to just say no to. The second offer seems a little bit more fairer because it's like, all right, like I'm getting Pollard and I'm getting Neighbors for Njoku and Hall, but it's like, man, I don't want to. I'm a Jets fan. I wouldn't want to give up. But I wouldn't in the right situation. I wouldn't in the right situation. So there's that. Pareko, keep us definitely posted on what's going on. He's also talking about, the Rams blowing up their whole team. And thoughts on Mahomes. You know what I'm saying?
Pareko, man. Cooper Kupp can't go to KC if he's going to Pittsburgh, baby.
Boy, you live in a pipe dream. That being said, if Cooper Kupp goes to Kansas City, that would be like chef's kiss for all my Kupp shares. But I don't know if that's going to really happen. Like JJ would get even better if Stafford went there, but these are all just rumors. I wouldn't run away with that just yet. I wouldn't make a trade based on that would happen anyway. If that were to happen, cool. You know what I'm saying? But it's like let's not take rumors and then make trades, you know what I'm saying, like with that information because it's not concrete. But Pareko, man, you're your own man. We'd love to hear what happens with that in terms of how your trades go. Jay, if you got a trade review, whatever, drop it. We'd love to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'd love to go back and forth. We'd love to dissect it for you for sure. We got Bronson in the chat. He says trade Mason and Ladd for Monty. I don't know.
Context, PPR, half point, give us that. But even still, though, I'm still kind of like
definitely context. But what are you gonna say, Johnny?
No, man, I'm a Jordan Mason guy, man. Like, I want to ride this. I want to ride this till the wheels fall off, man. I do, bro. I want to ride it till the wheels fall off. PPR. I want to ride it till the wheels fall off, man. And even in Bronson in the PPR, man, you're taking Ladd, who potentially at some point in time, like, does he take that big step, man, and actually truly become the Chargers' #1 wide receiver? Yes, he is. And then you got Jordan Mason, man, in that offense, yo. Like, I love David Montgomery and I love what it's been, but I think I called it, man, Sunday, the Jahmyr Gibbs, like, it was gonna be a thing, man. And like you're splitting a backfield.
Yeah.
Mason is not splitting a backfield, and I find it super hard to believe that Christian McCaffrey comes back, and if he does come back, then he's gonna come back and he's gonna be in some form of a timeshare. And like we've been saying this entire show, you lose the Super Bowl, man, it's tough sledding, man.
Yep. Jordan Mason is one of the sell highs we have this week. But
you've been trying to sell my man all year long, man.
Well, in context, because if you got a trade that makes your team better, you can't deny
right.
And then there's some rumblings about CMC coming back at some point. We don't know what that's going to be, but I'd rather get something decent for him at this point because now people know he's productive versus like, all right, like, just sitting on my hands. And if I don't want CMC, that makes this even worse where I'm not trying to sell him for something. But that's just like where we see. But I wouldn't do this trade. The only reason why is because, like you just talked about, Detroit is a split backfield. They have a ton of weapons. And Monty's probably better used. He's better formatted for a half-point PPR or a standard league because of how his value increases better in those formats. But Mason and Ladd, no, I think Ladd can still be the Charger receiver of that team. That Herbert can get very comfortable with. I said a couple weeks ago, trade buy low for Ladd McConkey, and so far it's been okay, but I think it can only get better as the season goes along. So I wouldn't do this for just Monty. I would probably do Mason and Ladd for probably a higher tier running back. So probably if we're talking about, on the top of my head, if we're talking about, let's see, based on value, I would probably say if we're talking about, I would probably even do those two for Jonathan Taylor. I'd do those two for Kenneth Walker, even Mixon.
My God, no way.
Even Mixon. So even Kamara. So
I was about to say Kamara.
I think any of those guys, those two I'd hit up those guys, try to see if I can get something like that done first. Because Monty still has value. Again, it's just more about, I think Mason and Ladd still some decent pieces to trade off of. Just for Monty, where we just saw Gibbs had an amazing, day. I don't know. We know Detroit loves them both, so it's going to be one of those, split backfields where both of them could definitely succeed. Chaka says, should I trade Kamara and Higgins for Waddle for Hall and Waddle PPR redraft? Thank you for the context. Man, that's a little tougher.
Well, if Tua is actually back, I subscribe to this. I subscribe to this. I subscribe to this just like you should subscribe to the show. If you haven't already do that.
If you haven't already done so.
Yeah. But if Tua's back, then I definitely do this because I think, for all the things we've been talking about, these guys that we can buy. The Miami Dolphin offense was something that we were all in on this offseason, and Tua's coming back. So, as a wise street philosopher once said, scared money don't make no money. So, if Tua's back, and I think you've seen it. I think you've seen it against the Steelers with Breece Hall and just how dynamic of a receiver he is and how to get him out in open space. And what a problem he is there. So I think for me, maybe the rushing isn't going to be there for Breece Hall per se, but I think when you think about him out in space now with the weapons that they have and him being a dynamic receiver like that, I do like the upside with Hall and listen, I'm all about Alvin Kamara, baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for sure. But I like the second part of this trade for you for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the moves that if I'm looking to get from under Kamara, it's a move I would do. Reason being is because Hall is going to be, we know still the Jets offense, like we know it's, still a work in progress, but at least we know where the ball will go to. It's one of three places consistently. With Adams there now, it'll be Wilson, and it's Hall, it's Adams. It's one of those three guys are going to constantly get concentrated targets, constant workload. So that's where, if I'm looking to get from under Kamara, that's probably a good move, because I think the Saints, I don't know what they're doing this year, but they're not getting Kamara enough checkdowns like they've had previously. And I think that was just more of like the Carmichael, stuff that they wanted to do with Kamara, but they have not done that this year. And that's kind of taking the air out of Kamara for me in some ways. But with Higgins, I mean, he's also been really good this year.
Yeah, he has.
So it's like, again, like it's a fair move for both teams, I think, whatever side you're getting, because Higgins still the number 2 in Cincinnati, who's going to be, Chase. It's Higgins. It's Jamar Chase. Like, those guys are going to have to get targeted. But with Waddle, yeah, I mean, you're banking on Waddle, definitely being a lot better than he has been. But I can understand why someone would want to do this move either. But I would say the good news is that, if you're trading Kamara and Higgins, both of them have not had their bye yet. Waddle has. So that's a little bit of a value placement there. But I would say both sides of this trades are pretty okay. If you like Hall over Kamara, it would make sense to how you do this move, and you're hoping Waddle is better than Higgins, cool. But I would just see, if just to be safe, if someone would just do this move for Kamara, for Hall straight up. Because I do like Higgins a little bit more than I do Waddle rest of the season, but
yeah,
that's just kind of
safer.
But that being said, Ron's got a question as well, but we'll get to our boy Dustin real quick, because you guys gotta scream the KOC.
KOC, Wizard. Yes, KOC. Yes, he is, bro. Hey man, listen, that guy, man, he is a wizard, man. He is a wizard.
How much better would the Vikings be with Stafford? I mean, there's that relatability, you know what I'm saying, back with O'Connell, you know what I'm saying, with Stafford. I don't really, that's a really good question, because it's not like Darnold's been extremely terrible this season. So I don't know what the rumor is all of a sudden with Stafford going there. Yeah. I'm at to dig in a little bit after the show, because I'm not understanding why Stafford will be like so much better than Darnold, or why Vikings would want to trade for him. Because not like Stafford's been lining up either. He hasn't even had a multi-touchdown through the air.
But also too, he ain't had his dogs with him. And I think
that's fair.
For the Vikings, the biggest uptick for me, man, has been on the defensive side of the ball. It's not even what they've been doing offensively. It's been more about what they've been doing defensively, for real.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be interesting. I'm not too sure if it's such a humongous upgrade, though, even all things considered. But it would just be something.
Well, I think it would just be like, okay, like, what Matt Stafford brings to the table. I think there's still some uncertainty and some hesitancy with Sam Darnold for like, when is he going to come back to earth? So I think if there's that's fair, man. Like I think it's fair, but like I think too, man, like to the next comment, like Kevin O'Connell, like without any shadow of a doubt, is the best coach that he has had. Like, no questions asked, man. Like Kyle Shanahan, but like obviously he wasn't having the opportunity to get on the field in that offense, given Brock Purdy being there. But I think Kevin O'Connell is absolutely a QB wizard for sure, man. Which is why I've been screaming his name all year long, man. I was a little bit hesitant. KOC. I was a little bit hesitant, for sure. With oh my God, man, I'm drawing a blank. Quarterback from Michigan. JJ McCarthy. I was a little bit hesitant about them starting him, but I think, man, shit, it just makes me think about the memes. I might have to fire him up whenever, Kevin O'Connell sees JJ McCarthy. He's like, I can fix him.
I can fix him. There you go.
I can fix him.
I get it. Bron's got another question. I think it's 2. So three flex league running backs: Jacobs, Mason, Bigsby, Algier, Bucky Irving, and Brooks. Receivers are Chase, London, Debo, Terry, and BTJ. With
this
Ladd
is the follow-up.
Juju
He's giving us additional info on his.
Giving us additional info.
Yeah.
So what about Mahomes and Mason for Kamara? It's a 2 QB league. Got Gino, May and Tua. Oh, well, yeah. That's a really creative way to make a trade happen. I guess my question is you're kind of just giving up Mahomes for free in this situation, in my opinion.
I'm not even worried about that per se. I just want to know why my man want to get off of Jordan Mason so bad for Kamara. Like, I would rather have Jordan Mason than Kamara, like, at this point. Like, I don't know. That's just me. That's just me. And I'm a Kamara guy.
I don't understand how we're just doing it freely. We're just giving away Mahomes here. I understand Mahomes is not like fantasy as he once was, but it's like we can't keep it. It
can still go for 250 and 2 or 3, man. Like, I mean, if I was gonna look to move a quarterback out of this group, man, I'd probably try to see if I could move off of Tua, to be real. Like,
yeah, take advantage of what's going on. Like,
yeah,
I agree.
like, yeah, because I think like I don't think you're moving Gino like at all, man. Like, you keep him for sure, and like, yo, like, for whatever it's worth, man. I think like you've seen like what Drake May can be for the Patriots, and granted, it was against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So like again, so maybe he's the guy maybe that you think about moving to sell high, because the Jacksonville Jaguars are a get right team against, that's the team you want to play to get right. But he also gives you a little bit of mobility as well, man. And he's going to be the guy barring injury for the rest of the year. So I don't know, man. Like, I think you got an interesting conundrum on your hands for sure, man. And, like we've said before a couple times on here, man, it's like, yo, sometimes the best move is no move at all, man.
Sometimes the best move is definitely no move, my guy. For sure. Sell highs, then we'll get to the waiver wires. Tank Bigsby is a sell high, and then Najee Harris made the list again. But along with Jordan Mason, and the only reason why these guys are making a sell high is because, especially what you want to do sometimes is take advantage of the hype. And just take advantage of the game that we just seen for Tank Bigsby. Like, look, the guy was phenomenal. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think Tank Bigsby is still a guy that, unless for all intents and purposes, Dynasty is a totally different situation.
Different animal, right? Man.
It's a different situation where we're pretty much doing redraft, anything this season, whatever. If you have a question about Dynasty, we can do our best to answer it. But obviously, Tank Bigsby, 118 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, like just looking like an animal. But let's be honest. How can we really predict this type of game script? How many more times for Jacksonville moving forward? So in situations and weeks like this, where a couple weeks ago was also a great sell high point against the Colts, where he ran all over them as well. He had over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game as well. I'm not saying Tank Bigsby isn't one of those guys that we came off the waiver wire we could keep on using throughout the whole year and stuff. But I think if we want to get creative, and you have to look at your roster and be like, hey, is this roster going to win it all? And if it's not, make a move to improve it. It's just the next couple of weeks for the Jaguars, let's be honest. I don't think
they got Green Bay up next week.
Yeah, I mean, unless Tank Bigsby really could be that guy. But the next couple of weeks, even after the bye, you're not getting good, relative, game scripts here for Tank Bigsby because he doesn't really catch the ball at the backfield enough. So Green Bay this week, then Philly, Minnesota, Detroit before the bye, then Houston, Tennessee, Jets. Like, these are all teams moving forward. That's like, it's not very likely that Bigsby gets some type of script like this again. So that's the only reason why he's making a sell high list. He's very talented. Don't get me wrong. You got him off the waiver wire for pretty much the cheap, I bet. So I think it's time to at least seek out what you can get for him if you have him. What do you say, Johnny?
Yeah, I think like you got to put out feelers for him for sure, because I don't think the Jaguars are going to go away from Travis Etienne whenever he does come back. I kind of low key do like him against Green Bay this week, just kind of low key. Just because Green Bay, it's been a little bit sus with them in the run game. I'm not quite sure what their rankings are, just going off of the eye test and just like some past recency here with them. So like, maybe you roll the dice again, man. Like, I agree. Like, he doesn't give you a lot in the passing game. And the other part of this too, I will continue to say this because I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe this. We're probably only another 2 losses, 3 losses away from a whole new coaching staff. And when you get a new coaching staff, now all of a sudden, like these coaches aren't tied to anybody or anything like that right there. So it'll be interesting to see. But I do think I do like where you're going with the sell high piece for him, because maybe you find somebody who's 2 games out and maybe a couple of weeks away from getting Jonathan Taylor back, and that's who you target, right? Like you find that guy to like make a move, so like, hey, you can sell it and be like, hey, you'll have a running back for the next handful of weeks, and then JT's back, and then hey, maybe Tank Bigsby's nothing more than a flex play. Who knows, man? So I do like that.
Yeah, I mean, it just from a tactical standpoint, it just makes sense. Talked about Jordan Mason a little bit earlier on. Remember, this would be probably the perfect week to flip him to find out what kind of value you get, because again, the bye week is week 9. And then there's rumblings of CMC coming back at some point, but to whoever you think might come, if he might come back early, he might not, who knows? It's running the gamble of, I just want something for all the time I've had Jordan Mason. This is really only for people that don't have CMC. If you have CMC in your roster, I wouldn't exactly make a move and hoping that CMC just bounces back out of nowhere. But it's something where if I don't have CMC on my rosters, I need to seriously think about where I'm at with my rosters with Jordan Mason on them, and if it's beneficial for me to make a better move to help on my roster long term. But I know you're probably shaking your head over there, Johnny. So go ahead.
Yeah, man. Because I'm just thinking like, like for me, I think about this, right? Like I think about like. I got 2 little different scenarios here.
Oh, Lord. Hold on. Time out.
What's that?
Not very going off script for a moment.
Oh,
Celtics are whooping the Knicks'
ass,
yo.
Oh, yeah.
111-84 before the end of the third. Good Lord. God, yo. Jeez. 37 points for Tatum.
Yeah. Man, my parlay's already dead, bro. It's already dead. Like, man,
don't worry, there's a game at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. I might, depending on what happens here, I might be jumping into some live betting. But no, like with Jordan Mason, man, like I just think about like our roster, right? Where like you have, like I have a team where I have Saquon and Jordan Mason, with Jaden Daniels, with Garrett Wilson, pretty stacked. But then I think about another team that I have, right, with Ken Walker, Breece Hall, and Jordan Mason. Like if you're in a situation like that, bro, you're holding, like you're holding, man. Like, yeah, like you're holding. So like, I think it just depends on like, and we talk about this a lot, like a lot of the things like we talk about and we say are like in context with like, okay, like, maybe your team.
Wait, who are you running backs on that roster again? Barkley. Was Barkley, Mason?
Yeah, it's Barkley and Jordan Mason in one league. That's just what I got. Then I'm pretty receiver heavy. I can't remember. I think I got like Garrett Wilson. I did have Rashee Rice. I can't remember who else I got off the top of my head. But then I have another in my other league. I have Ken Walker, Breece Hall, and I was just saying, like, for example, if you have Jordan Mason, because there's probably going to be some situations and there's some teams that do have that where like they may have hit the mark on running back and they just picked up Jordan Mason off the waiver wire. And it's like, all right, man, like for all intents and purposes, like Jordan Mason is your 3rd running back. All right. So either A, like you can obviously stand pat, or B, like you can move him. But like, if you're going to move him, like you need to move him for something that's like super elite. Because otherwise, man, you can just hang on to him and keep riding it out, man. I mean, shit, we're going into week 8 and Jordan Mason has been, he might end up being the waiver wire pick of the year. We might have already found the Kyron Williams of last year. And like, why would we move off of him, man? So I feel very strongly about just hanging on to him, man, just because, like I said, Christian McCaffrey's there's a lot of money in him that like, it's kind of like this with the 49ers, right? And obviously, bro, this week, what are we doing? They playing the Dallas Cowboys this week, dog. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Hang on to that man. Hang on to him because he's about to get ready to go bananas.
Oh, my goodness.
Bananas.
Oh, boy. I mean, yeah, it's at home as well. So, I mean, look, I'm just saying, like, it's just one of those things because he'll be on bye next week. So that's where it's like you're trying to get ahead and it'll be like, all right, like, even if he does have a stellar game, he'll end up being on bye. Then it's like, you got to wait a week. Last sell would be Najee Harris real quickly. I mean, it's just more about what I said last week. I mean, he carved my Jets up pretty nicely, which is cool and all. I like Najee. His snap share is just going down with Jalen Warren now fully back. And the problem is the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule, like I talked about earlier as well with you, the only schedule only gets tougher when it comes to facing these AFC North opponents who are pretty decent, besides pretty much the Bengals, against the run. And familiarities, tendencies, stuff like that. I do agree with if you are going to hold Harris, he does, for whatever reason, get better as the season goes along. But what I am going to say is I think it's still the perfect move at the right time right now, again, before the bye week as well, a situation here, is to get to trade away Najee Harris for a substantial piece. So Harris, and, if you're able to get, Juwan Jennings off the waiver wire this week for someone that's a higher upgrade at running back or receiver, or take, for example, if you got, you say Najee Harris, you take a Jaden Reed, and then you see what you can get for that.
I'd be all in on that.
You know what I'm saying? So there's ways to get interesting. Take a Harris and a Olave and find out you get CeeDee Lamb. Like, just get your creative juices flowing here, because it's like, I just think that, Pittsburgh plays the Giants, and then they're on bye.
They got the Giant, man. They got
Giants
the
are pretty
AFC,
decent this year on defense.
Yeah, they got the AFC North, man, waiting. They got the Kansas City Chiefs waiting. They got the Philadelphia Eagles waiting, man. Yeah. So it's tough sledding, man. And whenever I seen that Najee Harris was, one of the sell high candidates, I tried to try to make a case for how he looked, man, coming down the stretch last year, and I couldn't even make a viable case for him, man. However, if I did have to throw some sprinkles on top of the ice cream for the night,
I like ice cream.
I like ice cream too. I would say, like, the one reason why I think that, like, it could work is because I think, like, you just got a preview, right, of like what the Steelers offense could look like with them throwing the football down the field. And I think with them throwing the football down the field, like, you even seen Pat Freiermuth kind of, being able to get open. And I think one of the more interesting things, I won't make this all about the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I'll give, like, what I do at work is I'll say, like, all right, like, I'll wrap this up here within like 90 seconds, is George Pickens talked about it in his post-game interview. He talked about how Russell Wilson had a command of the offense and getting up to the line of scrimmage and calling out, coverages for the offensive line, or protection for the offensive line, coverages for things that he's seen. And Justin Fields just wasn't able to do that. Athleticism, Justin Fields, check. Higher upside, Justin Fields, check. But I think just, Russell Wilson being just a better quarterback, I will give the nod to Russell Wilson, because he definitely earned my respect after Sunday Night Football. Granted, it was only one game, but hey, man, I always say this all the time. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, they know a hell of a lot more than we do, even though we're pretty sharp dudes when it comes to football. Coach C knows what's up, man.
Makes sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Mike Tomlin. You know what I'm saying? So that's, but I mean, look, it's just, you just got to find out in these situations, like, it's not always about the player. It's more about what the player can get you. You know what I'm saying, as well. So, extra sells, we got Chuba Hubbard because he's on borrowed time with Jonathan Brooks coming up around the corner. Same thing with Deontay Johnson in a way. We don't know if they're going to try to trade him, stuff like that. With Carolina, they're looking just weird. They might go back to Bryce Young. So it's definitely a tricky situation there too. Anthony Richardson's on this list because if you could find some sucker to take him, cool. He's just he's metric wise, he's based on when it comes to EPA per dropback, efficiency passing, efficiency rate, like, it's just not good. He's
an egg sucking dog right now, man.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's just not good for Richardson.
No, it ain't good.
It makes me sad because it's like, I was hoping for bigger things for Richardson for the last 2 years. And it's like, it's also where it's like, you don't know what the situation's going to be like in a couple of weeks because, he could hurt himself again. It can go to Flacco if they
Or
want
yeah,
to
I
try
was
to turn
about
the
to say,
season
I
around.
think them going
Like,
to Flacco is more realistic than anything, man.
Because you look, and I said this, like when I didn't know what to
You
expect
said
when
it
Mitchell was
Sunday.
back
Yeah.
at receivers. I didn't know. So that's where it's like with Pittman, it's like I said, if Flacco's playing, yeah, I'm on Pittman. If he's not, Flacco's not playing, I'm not really there. Same thing with Josh Downs. So again, these receivers are getting hurt, week in and week out without, at least Flacco there because he's more steadier. You know what I'm saying? And he knows his strengths and weaknesses. And Richardson really doesn't just yet. He's still developing as a passer. And getting into his own,
and a processor, bro.
But it just goes back to these guys. They get drafted so high to make an impact on our franchises, and it's like some of these guys can't hack that. They need to sit behind a veteran for a year. You know what I'm saying? They need to find out what's up.
I think they had said something like, dude, like that was only like I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe like 3 weeks ago. I think they only said that was like the 15th game he had started. Between like college and the pros. And like here's the thing, it was like, like again, like I'll wear loud and proud. Like when he was in college, man, like
God,
I didn't, and I said this to a guy down at the Scott Fishbowl 2 years ago. I said, man, like, like he was never a guy that I looked at like being a Tennessee fan and being like, shit, my team's got to play against him. So like when they started to like project him to be like a first round, a top 10, top 5 overall pick, I was like, damn, like they're going off of upside. And I didn't buy into it last year. And then seeing what he did like over the first couple of games, I was like, okay, like maybe it actually, maybe it's a thing, man. Like, right, maybe it's a thing. And he's my Scott Fishbowl. He's like, he's my Scott Fishbowl quarterback, and I got one effing win. He's my Warrior Bowl quarterback, and like I'm doing okay. But like, dude, like that guy is a disaster, bro. He's a disaster right now.
Yeah. I get it. Laporta is on this list because I don't know what Detroit's doing. And the only reason why I'm saying sell is because you could probably, convince the person trying to acquire Laporta, say, hey, Jameson Williams is going to be out for 2 games. Detroit's still a potent offense. They're going to get Laporta the ball
for 2 weeks.
But it's still a situation where it's like you spent so much draft capital on. Now it's just you got to find out what you just can get in general for him. So it's definitely concerning. Dobbins made the list because, again, we don't want to predict injuries because we can't do those. But it's like I think if you look to try to get something for Dobbins at this moment in time, like it's possible because people can still view Dobbins as a guy that can still be used as a nice RB2 every week. Same thing with Hunt until Pacheco gets back, but it's more about like Hunt's definitely on borrowed time. Not to say Pacheco's gonna like outwork Hunt because he's looked pretty good, but it's more in regards to you got him off the waiver wire, get something for him. And then Josh Jacobs is the last guy because he's in between a buy low, sell high because people are gonna look at the name and Jacobs and look at like all right, we could get something. I can get something for Jacobs if I have him. But I can also buy low on Josh Jacobs as well. So he's kind of he's one of those players that makes the middle here, in terms of some of these names. But anything else you want to say about these sells? I mean, Javonte Williams makes this list technically as well, but
who?
Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I think they got I mean, they got a pretty nice matchup this week. So he could end up being on this list again. And then Laporta, you nailed it, man. 2 weeks. Josh Jacobs, I find really intriguing, man, just because I think there is going to be a point in time in the year where they're going to have to start leaning on him because I do think teams are they're going to have to play Green Bay different. And when they do, I think like Josh Jacobs, if you make the right acquisition or you pick him up at the right time, man, or even if you're holding on to him and you're contending, I think he could potentially be a league winner because we all know how the weather gets in Lambeau towards the end of the year. But
agreed. TH has got a question for us. So he says, hold up. Come on. Apparently I'm running a little slow over here. Come on, little engine that could. Come on.
You in the big city. You should have that
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just saying. It's a struggle bus over here. Mixon or Kenneth Walker, half PPR rest this season. Yeah.
I love Kenneth Walker, bro.
Yeah.
Love him.
Yeah, it's close though, but it's more
It
about
is. It is. It
and
is.
you know
It is.
Houston's gonna constantly run the ball. Bobby Slowick, offense coordinator for Houston, constantly is gonna run Mixon on first down. Like
Yeah.
they've been doing that like pretty much ever since he not only been back, but also in terms of just in terms of just like how you know they're set up. You know, Stroud and these guys, like Stroud was terrible this past week.
Yo, but you know what happened? Exactly what I said on Sunday. Like, if I'm Green Bay, I'm bringing the blitz.
Yeah.
Like,
Statue quarterback.
yeah, I'm bringing the blitz, man.
Statue quarterback.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, yeah, we think Kenneth Walker is better rest of the season. The only reason why is because Kenneth Walker is starting to find his niche also in the backfield when it comes to receiving the ball. Seattle is going to push the ball constantly. It's going to also give Kenneth Walker, you know, great lanes to run through as well. With Geno Smith still leading the league in pass attempts, like I know Metcalf is probably not going to play this week, but I don't expect him to be out too much longer than that. So they're going to need to lean on Kenneth Walker, just like Houston's going to lean on Mixon. It is a little bit more closer to, you know, depending on, you know, based on success so far this year between the backs. But I would say Kenneth Walker is better rest of the season. We say Kenneth Walker is better rest of season. So waiver wire week 8. We got top waivers to go over. QB selection, you know, some of this, so give it context. This time of the year is overall just waiver wires are starting to dry up here a little bit here and there. So this is where you just got to double check what's available in your specific league when it comes to players. So QB waiver wires this week: Winston, May, Russ Wilson, and then checking for Tua, because he was either most likely dropped if you have an IR spot. And then for deep leagues, Mariota, that will beat deep leagues and Superflex, Mariota, Minshew, because Mariota looks like he's going to play this week because of, you know, Jaden Daniels being out for a couple of weeks. Week to week. So
yeah, with the ribs,
with the rib injury, which sucks. Really unfortunate. But these are what the names are here. Like I said, double check your overall waivers to find out what's available. What are you curious? I mean, I'm sure you're curious about Russell Wilson being on here.
Of course. Yeah.
Obviously. But Mariota, like I know for deep league specials and stuff like that, and then Minshew got his job back.
Yeah, right, dude. I know.
You know,
I'm watching.
Cook out league.
Oh my god, man.
Mariota's
back. I think probably outside of Russ being really interesting, right? Like I think obviously we know what Tua brings to the table. It's obviously injury pending. But like to me, like the two names at the very beginning, Drake May and Jameis Winston. Like Drake May is just interesting to me because, like, as the GOAT would say, the Konami cheat code. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
wait, what was that?
Yeah, I said it.
What was that?
I said it. You heard me.
Who?
The GOAT. I didn't stutter. The
Konami
cheat code.
What's his name?
Rich. Ibar.
Rebar.
I'm trying. Like, dudes a GOAT. Rich.
I'm gonna send this clip.
And he's gonna light me up again. He's gonna light me up again. I've been paying attention to him, man. Shout out, man. Yeah, but like Drake May is just interesting to me, man, just because of, like I said, man, like what he brings, man, with the mobility side of things. And I think, like you're saying, like he's livening the offense up for sure. And I think, man, we know about Jameis Winston, like we know what it is, like, and I think in my mind, what I think about Jameis Winston is I think it's something very similar to Baker Mayfield, right? He's gonna sling it. He's gonna throw picks, and he'll tell you, man, like he don't give a shit. Like he's gonna be out there. He's gonna be slinging it. And I think actually there was well, we haven't got to him, and I didn't see him on our list, so I'll make sure to bring him up when we talk about it. But I think Jameis Winston and Drake May are like, you know, definitely 1Bs for me. I think Russ and Tua are 1A when I think about it. And Mariota, like he's going to be good enough to get you through 1 week if you have Jaden Daniels in a super flex league. and you need another play, like obviously you want to go there, or shit, even if you just need another quarterback, right? Like if you have been, rolling with anybody else, any different, that can help you get through 1 week for sure. But for me, it definitely goes Russ, Tua, May, and Winston.
Yeah, it looks decent. It looks decent. I ain't gonna lie. So we'll have to see. I think he probably looked a little bit more better than I would give him credit for.
Who?
But hey, Drake May.
Man, no, bro. Like early on in the season, man. Like I was like when they drafted him, I was like, man, what are they doing? But I ain't gonna lie. Like I was like, what are they doing? And like I think like just seeing him, man, and seeing like to Dustin's point, like seeing what he's about. Like I can rock with dude, man. Like I can rock with him for sure. And obviously being up here in New England, a lot of Patriot fans are, I think they're pleasantly surprised with what they've seen from him. I actually had my brother-in-law actually messaging me at 9:30 a.m. watching the Patriots game, and he's a big Celtics guy. He's like, "Are you watching football on this beautiful Sunday morning?" I'm like, "Bro, you ain't gonna be talking like that the next hour and a half." But yeah, man, I'm watching it, bro.
Oh my goodness, yo. That's fair. Most impressive rookie he met, Combine.
Okay.
Huh. You don't like Jaden Daniels, huh? Huh. Interesting. Now I'm kind of judging you, Dustin.
Most impressive, right? Like I think like that he met.
I know.
He met.
That's true. He probably didn't get a chance to meet it. But I get it. I'm just poking fun. But yeah, QBs. Running backs. Got a couple of tiers, different guys, got a lot. Yeah, I know. This is the time of the year where you have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Again, there's going to be people that are not paying attention enough in the league. So sometimes some of these tiers are all over the place. Tier 1 is pretty much consumed of guys at the moment who, again, pretty much one injury away from really being the guy, unless it's Tyrone Tracy or / like Ray Davis and Algier and stuff like that. Like those three guys alone would have standalone value. I think in general, if you were in a pinch, you may need to start one of those guys this week. But there's no bye week, but it's still those guys. I think in tier 1, I think still need to be rostered. Jalen Wright as well. So those guys, tier 2 consists of Kendre Miller, the Bears running backs. We got Jalen Warren here. Antonio Gibson still here. Excuse me, Kamani Vidal. Madison, who probably is in tier 1 technically. He's technically RB1 of the Raiders at the moment. Trey Benson, Sean Tucker. And then Corum got moved from tier 3 to tier 2 because, again, you never know what the Rams are hearing all these rumblings with rumors about them trading Cup, trading Stafford, and who knows? They might try to trade away Kyron too. You just never know. But obviously the impressive rookies there at tier 2, and then tier 3, Dearness Johnson, Antonio, Damian Pierce to the Texans, your favorite, and Marshawn Lloyd, who should be coming back from injury soon. Any thoughts on all these guys? Are you prioritizing any of these guys this upcoming week?
Well, Jalen Warren, obviously being a Steeler fan, I got him in a couple of leagues where like I'm not over Steeler heavy. I picked him up about 2 weeks ago. You're spot on with Alexander Madison. I think it's time that like we actually put a little bit more respect behind his name if he is available. I would highly recommend that you definitely do go get him. Ray Davis and Tracy, yeah. Dearness Johnson is really the more interesting one here on the list for me. For sure. He's the more interesting one, I think, like out of all the players that are left. And I think Sean Tucker could be interesting depending on what happens with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here over the next handful of weeks. I think it was reported today that Mike Williams isn't expected to be back until week 11. That's a long stretch. Yep. Yeah, that's a long stretch. And one would expect the Atlanta Falcons to run away with the division. One would expect, but bro.
Said this last year.
Yeah. And the only reason why I'm saying that, Dustin, right now is because if Tampa Bay gets into if they get into a situation, bro, if they get into a situation where they're not playing for anything, then week 14 by Mageddon. Who knows, man?
It's
So
possible. It's
yeah,
just a lot of talk about the Bucks splitting the backfield and stuff like
yeah,
that. And it's like
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
like hearing that type of stuff, like
No,
hot hand stuff week to
no,
week. That's like the worst thing of fantasy
no.
football when it
But
comes to
we've been
running
talking
backs.
about it all. We've been talking about it
But
all show about being ahead, man. Like at
but
this point, if he's still out there, you didn't spend up for him, so like you
right,
should be able to get him for. You should be able to
right.
get him for
You
nothing.
should
There's
really just at
nothing
least
wrong
pick
with
them up.
roster.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
there's
wrong with
nothing wrong with
rostering.
rostering running backs at this point.
Yeah, there isn't because again, like I said, funny things just happen. But this is the time of year you just gotta get waiver wire gets real dry in certain leagues, and just got to see what you can overall grab. I mean, honestly, like Marshawn Lloyd is just an interesting case because the Emmanuel Wilson and Jacobs there already, but I think there was a lot of talk about the Packers liking Lloyd early on in the year, so that's where for anything
We'll
that's like the cheaper guy I'd like to acquire because no one's talking about him like that to at least bench. So we'll just find out.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of running backs, like we're pretty much straight here. It's just again, you just got to be like we said, got to be forward thinking about if something were to happen, like is you want someone else's handcuff. You know what I'm saying? If you can't get your own, so it is what it is. Receivers for tier 1, 2, and 3.
You got
there's a lot to go over.
Yeah.
a lot of things change over the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
But Juwan Jennings back to being pretty much priority number 1, basically coming out. I know he had an injury he was dealing with as well.
Yep.
So that's something where we gotta monitor. What was he dealing with? Looks like he was a hip injury. Yeah, but hip.
Yeah. Wait! Before you go any farther, shout out UT.
Oh God. Anyhow, Jalen McMillan.
Yeah.
Should be a very hot commodity off the waiver wires this week because if you were like me, stash him in a couple of leagues. Honestly, you should have stashed him when you heard about the Mike Evans news of the hamstring. Because there was a chance that, that doesn't always happen, but there's always a chance of re-aggravation and stuff like that. Your final chance was at least pick him up for the Monday game. So, so it's again, you've had some chances to see if you get McMillan, if he's on your waiver wire, you know what I'm saying? That's something else to say. Going around with the rest of, you got, Cedric Tillman, who, shout out.
UT, baby.
Okay. And he was honestly back when a couple of years ago when Jalen Hyatt was playing with these guys, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this, where Cedric Tillman looked like the better receiver until he got hurt week 3 of that last season, man. Before Jalen Hyatt took the hell off.
Well, because actually that's what it was like he was actually like projected to go like higher, and then he did get injured, and then actually I had a buddy that he was on a cruise, and he had messaged me. He's like, hey man. He's like, who do you think is going to go higher, Cedric Tillman or Jalen Hyatt? And they went back to back on picks, man. So but just an interesting thing, man, because Cedric Tillman obviously being a UT guy, and obviously outside of him being a UT guy, but just like paying attention to what's going on. Like last week, he actually led all wide receivers in week 7 for targets, and he ran 45 routes last week. So I think he's a guy that I talked about buying Njoku, which I know it's weird me talking about the Browns this much this week. But he's a guy that I think you really got to give some consideration to, because sometimes these are the players right here, and it's right around this time. We've been talking about all show.
Mm-hmm.
That you pick up these players, and these are the players that kind of take you to the second part. And now all of a sudden, man, Cedric Tillman is familiar with playing in an offense, man, that moves the ball downfield. He's got some good pedigree, man. So I'm definitely going to be taking a couple stabs at him in some of my leagues. Leagues that have Fab, I'm not going to be giving up the farm. He's not going to be my number 1 waiver priority because I do think you should be able to slide through and not have to waste a claim on him. You should be able to just pick him up. Now, Jalen McMillan, man, to your point, that's a good call on your point. You started to get on him a little bit later on in the summer, and I think that's a good call, man, because I really think he could fit that Chris Godwin role really nicely for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Juwan Jennings goes without saying. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not wrong statistically, I think Juwan Jennings might actually have the highest output this season for a wide receiver for fantasy points. So I think like these tier 1 wide receivers, man, I think we're pretty spot on with how we've got them ranked in tier 1. I like all of these guys right here, and I'm comfortable taking any and all of these guys in our tier 1 on my own actual teams for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll have to look that up. I think he probably does have the best. He probably had the biggest boom game.
Yeah,
out of all the receivers.
Yeah, he had. I'm pretty sure he had the most points.
Chase was close.
He might have been. Yeah, he might have been
close. I think Jefferson was also close.
Yeah.
No, Jefferson hasn't had that like 30-point game this year yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have to go back to that. But I think Juwan Jennings might have had the best boomish like game thus far in one game this year. Because he scored 3 touchdowns. But yeah, I mean Juwan Jennings should be out there. I think people dropped them because the Niners had gotten healthy and now they're not healthy again.
Right.
So yeah, he's probably on some teams, but he probably should be definitely your number 1 waiver claims. He's out there. Rashad Bateman continues to surprise out here when it comes to fantasy football streets. He used to be just this guy that people were like, is he ever gonna do anything? You know what I'm saying? Now if it's 4th year, should have done this last year, but because the Ravens offense has changed in terms of how they're using their playbook, because you could tell from this year versus last year, the Monken offense, we're starting to kind of see now shades of what Monken has been trying to do, I guess. And that's where again, especially against the blitz, Lamar's been impeccable against the blitz this year. And that's where the Bucks tried to do this, So instead of them just kind of just floundering to the blitzes and stuff like that and playing keep away or whatever, or trying to run their own game plan. It's they're gonna they're throwing the ball deep to Bateman. They're getting Zay Flowers on end arounds and stuff like that. So Bateman, he had his best year, best game of his season so far. He was wide receiver 3 overall. Because obviously he had a 59-yard boom play.
Bro, they were just walking in the end zone last night.
Yeah, it was definitely wild. But the Ravens, don't get me wrong, still a team that's gonna still want to establish a run first and everything. But I think he's worth picking up and finding out. The Ravens are gonna continue doing what they've been doing. David Largett on this list. He probably shouldn't be because he probably should be more in more leagues, but I still see him in 60% of sleeper leagues, which is
he is not available in one league I'm in.
Yo.
He ain't available in one league I'm in.
So weird, yo. I don't get it. He's available in 58% of sleeper leagues, but it's still a lot. It's still a lot. I'm
he'll probably move up to maybe 65 after that performance from Carolina this Sunday. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just we don't know what Carolina is going to want to do. They always do some weird stuff every time, so it's understandable. But Wicks is another guy that should be honed. He's definitely higher up. He's definitely so he's 64% available in sleeper leagues. So yeah, that's a good call there. I mean, Green Bay is going to constantly change up their receivers every week, but I think it's a good time to stash Wicks because we saw that rapport earlier on, especially in the preseason. So with love, so it's something we'll definitely keep in mind.
And bye weeks, bro.
Yeah, definitely coming up. Tolbert on this list probably should be more available. I know some people probably dropped them because of bye weeks and stuff like that. So just double check your waiver wires. I see him still available in 67% of sleeper leagues. Pearsall and Cowing is, if you miss out on Jennings or if he's already owned your leagues, either one of these guys I would pick up and stash because we don't know how the Niners are going to shake out their receiver core now outside of, especially if Debo doesn't play. Pick up one of these guys and finding out what's going on. And then tier 3 is interesting. Because Khalif Raymond is going to step up a little bit more into the Jameson Williams role. Didn't add him, but Tim Patrick's interesting here as well.
Bro. I was about to say.
Tim Patrick's interesting here as well. Troy Franklin and it's Sterling Shepard because there's a report of Baker Mayfield, so he could slot into that. Dustin's talking about Mason Tipton. I'm not there yet with Mason Tipton because this is still a Saints offense that just looks weird. Like if you want volume, I think Cedric Wilson's the guy in that offense because there's a bunch of no names now with the Saints. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, take your pick, I guess, but I don't mind the mention of Mason Tipton. There's not someone I'm actively going out to try to put a waiver claim on or any fab on this week right now. Thoughts, Johnny?
No, Tim Patrick, man, like that's the one I definitely like in tier 3, man. I think you can kind of see some things kind of shaking with Detroit, and it's only going to be for 2 weeks. Like that's what it's going to be.
Yep.
Rashad Bateman is somebody that I think we do have to give some consideration to because I think as the season continues to progress, you're gonna have to pick your poison with the Baltimore Ravens, man. And I think like you kind of seen it last night a little bit. You seen it a little bit last night with shut up, fool. Shut up.
Rough. It's rough, yo. It's rough.
You seen it last
rough.
night.
It sucks. This is what the league has allowed to happen. This is what happens when Derrick Henry hit the free agency market, goes and teams up with a guy like Lamar Jackson. Now it's
Jerry Jones. Thanks, Jerry Jones.
You know, now do I have to freaking cover the edge rushes when Lamar comes out, or am I gonna get beat up on the inside with Derrick Henry, or is Lamar Jackson gonna do a play action pass?
Hey man,
listen, Bateman over the freaking middle.
Hey man, you
crazy.
You know what I mean? Hey, you know what I mean? Like doing too much, man. Doing too much.
I'm just saying, it looked crazy out there last night.
No. I mean, it's a tough offense to stop, right? And I think like we all knew that was going to be a thing, but like just kind of side note, random now, like right? Well, not random, but just like crazy that like you take Saquon Barkley off the New York Giants, who were like you had to at least like kind of respect them, and then you take Derrick Henry off the Tennessee Titans, which you kind of had to respect them. You remove them from those situations, and it's like, damn, they stink, man. Like, damn, they stink. Like, you know, the best, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, like I think, like I said, Tim Patrick, I think is the best call here for me, man. When we get outside it, and Rashad Bateman once we get outside of the tier 1 wide receivers.
Yeah. Tight ends are a very interesting week as well, where depending on your league availability, there's some guys here that just deserve rostering at the moment in time. Otten is probably leading the list because he's not only been a tight end that, you know, now is going to probably get some more, you know, waiver claims and stuff like that because of what happened to Godwin and Evans, but also Otten has been, you know, one of the higher end tight ends for route participation amongst tight ends. So it makes sense for Otten here. Hunter Henry showed his face again, who I just have I don't like Hunter Henry. He's just so Jekyll and Hyde. You know what I'm saying? It's like with Drake May now a quarterback, though, finally got him a good game, but he's so Jekyll and Hyde. Just like some of these other tight ends here too. Isaiah Likely, he might have been dropped in your leagues. Jonnu Smith, I mean, remains to be seen. It remains to be. What's that?
I said he had a big week, man.
Who, Likely? No,
Jonnu Smith.
Oh yeah, he had a big week because it seemed like all Miami did in a bye week was scheme Jonnu Smith. Like, hello, what about Tyreek Hill? Hello, what about Jalen Waddle? What about Deron Achan? Like, Jesus, like terrible. But in terms of Likely, he's probably still out there in some leagues because people probably saw the Andrews and like, but he makes the list, but that's only probably more for shower leagues because Likely still pretty much probably one of those players that are still on people's rosters. Yeah. But Jonnu Smith definitely out there. Hunter Henry, tier 2. Will Dissly, like what the heck happened in that Charger Cardinal game? I was like, yo, what is going on? Like Herbert like threw for over over 340 passing yards at least. Like Will Dissly had 11 targets, yo. 8 catches, 81 yards, yo. Like what?
It was his turn in tight end roulette, man. It was his turn. It was his turn.
I was like, look, Will Dissly was always, you know, because he had always used like with him and Fant and freaking Parkinson, stuff like that. Like, excuse me, like they were always a weird tandem in Seattle. So yeah, Will Dissly, forgot about him, honestly. For the Chargers, like just forgot about him.
Stupid, man.
I just forgot about it. But I think it deserves to be warranted. If you're having tight end troubles, like I am in one league where it just seems like whatever tight end I freaking start, it's like doesn't go right. Noah Fant's there as well. Jatavion Sanders. Hopefully people have been listening. I think the parents have been listening to this podcast, bro, because ever since we mentioned him a couple weeks ago, now all of a sudden they want to start throwing him the ball. Like, oh, okay, we got some influence.
Love it.
Parkinson and Jawan Johnson also here. So it's a lot of tight ends that, hopefully something sticks here for some of the tight end because we just need some better production out this position in general across fantasy football. At least with Mark Andrews getting back on the, back on the choo-choo train. Hopefully Laporta is as well. Just hopefully we're getting better production out that position in general. Streaming defenses before we start creeping up out of here is Detroit Lions versus the Titans. I think they're available in a good amount of sleeper leagues as I'm looking, but I think the Lions are one of those defenses that they're not like world beaters per se. But it's the matchup. Like Mason Rudolph, come on, let's be honest. It's Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph. Lions have had back-to-back.
You were trying to bait me and I didn't take it.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
But no, back-to-back games of at least 4 sacks for the Lions. Even though, without Hutchinson, this team could still get after it. So that's where I think they're still formidable enough that you could, for this week against Tennessee, they're at home. So that's where I think you could definitely get, more creative. If somehow the Chiefs are out there on waiver wires, that's probably somewhere I'm probably banking on because a lot of bad blood between these teams. Raiders, Chiefs this week. And I think that the Chiefs are just looking really phenomenal, both real life. Fantasy wise, they're not, wowing you. They haven't had a multi-sack game since week 4. But I think in a situation where I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to want to stick it to the Raiders for talking all that shit in the offseason. I think they'll be all fired up. I think they'll be fired up. I'm sure you did. Don't sell Mahomes just yet. I think it's going to try to put 5 touchdowns against these guys in it this week. So we'll have to see. But yeah, Chiefs against the Raiders. And then lastly, Chargers for the Saints because they're still starting Spencer Rattler, who, man, I don't know what Spencer Rattler. He is like, man, I don't know what to think of him just yet. And yeah, Brian Branch for the Lions. Should have a game against the Titans. It should be definitely interesting, Dustin. But I was gonna say is that the Chargers, after that weird loss, should get a lot better of hopefully a better game here against the Saints. Where again with Spencer Rattler, I have no idea what to really expect from him. Just
well, I think to be fair, I think man, just
Olave,
to be fair,
so it
I was about to say to be fair, that's what it is. No Olave yet, so I think we gotta
temper a little bit.
I wouldn't say temper, man. I just think I don't think it's gonna get too much better for him, but I think it's kind of unfair to judge this guy, man, when he literally doesn't have his 2 top wide receivers out there, and we're out here with Mason Tipton and some of these other cats that we wouldn't know if we walk past these guys on the street, man. Foster Moreau and there ain't even no Taysom Hill, man. I'm not a Saints guy, but I just think
not either.
He's getting thrown into this situation and there's nothing there, man.
Nope, nothing there. So yeah, nothing there.
Nothing there at all. But nobody's home.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. All right, Johnny. We got into that end of the show. You have any final thoughts?
Nah, man. I just think there's definitely a lot of good options out there for you on the waiver wire, especially if you're a Chris Godwin owner. Or, if you're in a super flex league and you had Deshaun Watson or, some of the other quarterback changes that happened, I think, there's definitely some options out there for sure, especially a wide receiver, a lot of options. Maybe you have to, like I said, y'all, I told you all the time about me, man, I like to be cheap. I don't like to use my waiver wire claim. I like to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, get my wife annoyed at me and start picking up players. There's some good players out there. And sometimes, man, though, even like Cedric Tillman, I think is absolutely a guy that I feel like that might slide through the cracks for you for sure. So yeah, man, good luck to everybody out there. Appreciate the love, Dustin. Yeah, man, a lot of great options out there. Jatavion Sanders, man, if he's still out there, man, guys putting up tight end one numbers for you in a position that's a wasteland. If Caleb Williams happens to somehow still be available in your league, please go get him because that guy, I think we're entering the season. One QB league for sure. Obviously, he's not available in 2 QB leagues, man. But and I'm gonna make a plug for one more guy before we leave. And that's JSN with no Metcalf potentially for this week. 4th in routes ran over the last 3 weeks. We had kind of drafted JSN to blow up. I think he's going to get his opportunity here. He's in a really good situation this weekend. So we'll see how that shakes out, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how that shakes out. Because JSN it hasn't been looking pretty. Let's just say that. But yeah, with potentially no Metcalf this week, definitely puts him under a microscope in hopes in that he can deliver production, especially this week. So against a game in Buffalo, at home to Buffalo, where he could definitely succeed. Final thoughts for me, I would say literally it's just you got to put feelers out there. You got to get aggressive. You can't just send one trade proposal to one owner and expect something to happen. You got to get, aggressive. You got to be like, hey, you got to have intentions of getting a deal done. Just literally just like sales, in some type of way. Sometimes it's like, you got to go out there and get a deal done. You need to get something to improve your roster. Go out there and get it. Don't, you never know because the one owner you may not hit up or may not be thinking about trading with all of a sudden is willing to make a deal, willing to send a counter. All of a sudden, it's you got things out there. So I think that's really important to keep in mind for season-long leagues because anything's possible. Anything's where it's all right, this guy might not give up this guy, but then all of a sudden you see him in a trade a couple of days later, and you're like, man, I could have gave him this, could have gave him that. Well, you didn't hit him up or her up. So it's you gotta dig deep. But this is the time of the year, so feel free to come on to our next show. Because our next show is week 8. We have the picks, the bets, and the props. Looking to improve on the record from last week because we went 5-8 in the prop shop. Not exactly great. Looking to improve that. 42-38 on the year. But in terms of we got your picks, we got your bets, you got your props. Your last minute starts and sits, and any other advice you need before the window closes for the opening of week 8. So that does it for me and Johnny this evening. If you guys haven't been following us on Twitter, please do so. You guys are making a mistake if you're not. That being said, hit us up on the DMs, tag us. We're around. But until the next show, we will see you guys.